Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to my TED Talk, so to speak. I appreciate everyone being here. Today, we're going to talk about a lighter topic than usual, but one that I feel is immensely useful for everyone in this digital remote age. And some of this information could save you one day, so you never know. My name is Bill Guenther. I'm a learning design professional with the learning and development team here at IFG. Today, we're going to talk about some Zoom pain points and how we can either prevent or fix them. Why does this matter? Because virtual distractions reduce productivity and professionalism. Today's goal is to equip you with practical fixes and leadership behaviors to keep meetings effective. Okay, so first off, let's get some interaction here. I want to keep things light and fun. It's Friday. We're talking about Zoom today, so let me know either in the chat or you can fire off an emoji reaction, but let me know how much of a Zoom expert you think you are. If you're a beginner, send a 1 in the chat or a thumbs up emoji. If you think you're an intermediate Zoom user, send a 3 in the chat or a smiley face. And if you're an expert, send a 5 in the chat or an applause emoji. And then you can go ahead and give yourself a round of applause and log off for the day since you obviously already know everything. Just kidding, just kidding. If everyone could respond, though, however you'd prefer, I just want to gauge our level of expertise in here. All right, I do see some 2s and 3s. So we have some beginners, some intermediates. That's great. You guys are going to learn some cool tips today. That's good. All right, yeah, more intermediates. You guys have probably been using Zoom for years. That's awesome. And there it is. Yep, okay. I know there's always one expert in here. So, all right, go ahead. Go ahead and enjoy the rest of your Friday. You are the expert. But no, all kidding aside, thank you to everyone who is awake and alive out there. It's good to see that everybody is in a spot where they can learn some new stuff. So let's go ahead. So here's a fun fact. Zoom has actually been around since mid-2013, but it didn't go public until 2019. And even then, it didn't gain full popularity as a major digital communications tool until COVID hit in 2020. You all might remember that. Masks, 6 feet apart, weirdly no toilet paper anywhere. Strange times. But Zoom has been a big part of our lives for over 5 years now, and while some of us may be pros by now, we still see some instances or hear stories of people with funny nicknames displayed in a work call. For my office fans, we have Andy Bernard there, the Nard Dog, or people using interesting backgrounds like Dwight on the Moon. And maybe some of us had even had a pet try to join in a call to give their 2 cents. Maybe a bit more than that, too. My point is, we've all been there, right? Now, while those examples are more lighthearted and relatively low impact to a meeting, there are things that can occur that can be very distracting to you if you're trying to lead a meeting or webinar, or even as an attendee trying to pay attention. Having distractions occur in those moments can be very derailing, and that's when things can go off the rails, sometimes very quickly. See what I did there? In my very recent experience trying to lead, moderate, and even just attend some Zoom sessions, I saw some unique distractions occur that I had honestly never before seen in a professional setting. So in an effort to prepare you for some of these strange occurrences, today we'll talk about my 3 favorites. Emoji spamming, too much chat in the chat box, and the dreaded, can you hear me now? We'll talk about some quick, actionable fixes, the impact on productivity that these issues can have, and any leadership behaviors that you can model. So let's get into it. For those of you who may not know, spamming something simply means to repetitively and often annoyingly send someone something over and over and over again. It's often used regarding ads for different things that you probably don't need. Spam emails are a great example of this. But that's evolved over the years into what we now know as targeted ads, for example, on social media. You search for or click on a product one time, and then every other ad you see is for a product made from various companies all wanting you to buy their version of that thing. Now, in the unique context of Zoom emojis, we're talking about people using the reaction button within a Zoom meeting to spam the entire call and everyone in it with various emojis, much like you're seeing on the screen now. So whoever is doing that, please knock it off. I'm just kidding. That's built into the slide deck. I'm just making sure you're all paying attention. If you haven't seen this before, using a Zoom reaction causes a little emoji to float up on the screen and hang for a moment before disappearing. Now, this may not sound like a major inconvenience when put that way, but during one particular training session, and this is a true story, I promise, we had some serious offenders. When I looked at the data, because there's always data, I found that one person of about 10 key perpetrators had sent 277 emojis in about an hour time span. The biggest burst of that was a 167 emoji burst that was spammed within a single minute. That is 968 emojis that were spammed during that session. 1 or 2 emojis floating up isn't a big deal. It's actually a great tool to levy some learner engagement. But 1,000 kissy emojis, sheep emojis, and eggplant emojis is not appropriate in a professional setting. Why is this important? It's simple. Excessive emoji use can derail focus and waste time, and we want you to be prepared for anything. So how did we fix that? For starters, in that particular session, we used some effective communication. We asked them politely to stop. We paused the content for a moment to have a manager come off mute and let participants know that what they were doing was distracting and not appropriate for a training class. Thankfully, that put a quick stop to that behavior for the session. What we didn't do is start yelling at people or getting visibly annoyed or even angry during a live training. And while it's possible to boot someone from a webinar, we didn't take that path either. After that lesson learned, we set to work figuring out how could we prevent that going forward. Well, I went on a journey to find the answers. I traveled deep into the jungle, into the settings of Zoom, like Jumanji, and I found a priceless gem. It was a beautiful orange gem, and it was the reaction settings gem. And I learned that with the power of this gem and these settings, the organizer of a session can alter the meeting and webinar to either allow all emojis to be used, limit the types of emojis that can be used in that session, or alternatively, if you want to disable the feature altogether, that's an option as well. Keep in mind, if you will be opting to use emojis for some sessions and not others, this setting will need to be changed often, based on need. Otherwise, enabling, disabling, or limiting this setting will carry over to all of your meetings and webinars going forward. Now, we saw some great leadership behaviors here as well. The facilitator was calm, reached out for support appropriately, and continued on after the interruption ceased. They modeled patience, professionalism, and now we're prepared for the future. The next common pain point I want to discuss are those pesky times when there is just too much chatting going on in the chat box. The chat feature can be a useful tool for engagement and furthering understanding, but it can also be the modern version of passing notes in class, a digital version of folding up a piece of paper into a little football and flicking it across the room at your friend. At least that's how I did it. Overall, we want to keep the chat focused on the relevant content. An unmanaged chat can derail focus and frustrate learners, so while the chat is great for engagement, it needs boundaries. Use engaging questions to generate productive discussions, avoid quiz and poll spoilers by giving clear instructions on how participants should interact with them, and handle concerns privately. This ensures a productive and respectful learning environment. Now, remember, sometimes it can be an honest mistake. Participants can put their answers into the chat without realizing that they were asked to answer in the poll or quiz window. That happens all the time. Remember, not everyone is an expert. So be patient, be polite, and communicate clearly where the question should be answered, and the issue will easily resolve. So that's a few ways we can prevent an overactive chat. Let's talk about some other ways we can fix it. Technologically speaking, we do have some options here. On the fly, from within the Zoom meeting or webinar, hosts and co-hosts can mute participants in the chat to stop them from further adding anything. Harsh, maybe, but the capability is there if you need. But there are other options as well. Hosts and co-hosts can send direct messages to that participant and address their concern or issue in a sidebar. This takes the chaos away from the main session and makes the person feel heard. In the instance that I saw this being the case, the learner had to ask the same question several times, and it wasn't addressed by the subject matter experts, or SMEs, who were manning an overactive chat already full of rapid-fire questions. The learner became frustrated and started acting rudely. Once I brought it to the attention of the SMEs, they were able to answer his question and restore peace to the galaxy. Again, communication, patience, and teamwork were key. So, how can we prevent this in the future? Well, while in the jungles of the Zoom settings, there was a second gem that I found, a beautiful blue gem. And you guessed it, it was the chat settings gem. Now in the chat settings, organizers can choose what level of participation is allowed in the chat. It can be decided who the panelists and attendees can chat with, either everyone or just the hosts and panelists, or nobody if necessary. Panelists can be allowed to send direct messages. Users can copy and save chats from the webinar, and if you want the class to be able to chat with everyone and their mother in the session, you can toggle that too. The other leadership quality we observed in this instance, besides the communication and teamwork we saw on the part of the facilitators, was some understanding by the frustrated learner. Once I reached out to let him know that the SMEs were answering questions as fast as they could, he understood the situation and his demeanor immediately changed and he apologized. Once we got him his answer, he was as happy as a clam at the beach. Okay, so let's get to our last Zoom pain point, and that's the famous, perhaps infamous, "Can you hear me now?" We all remember the commercials from the infancy of cell phone technology, right? The Verizon guy running around the country like Forrest Gump, ensuring that no matter where people were, that they could be heard, even though he switched to Sprint, but we're not going to get into that today. For our context today, we all know what that's like, right? We've all tried to talk while being muted or double muted or quadruple super duper muted, where you think you're finally not muted, but surprised you're still just talking to yourself and everyone else is wondering if you even pay attention. We all hate that. Actually, you guys can hear me now, right? Have I been muted this whole time? Oh, okay, good. You can hear me. Fantastic. All right, well, let's take a page out of the Verizon guy's book and be ever vigilant. Just like I was vigilant when I was trapped in the jungles of the Zoom settings, and yet I still managed to find one more gem for you. And it was a beautiful, let's call it Verizon Red gem. And this gem is the video and audio settings. Now, these settings are managed in each individual meeting or webinar you set up. So from an organizer standpoint, make sure that you have them properly set when organizing the event. If you don't want others to be actively participating, you can toggle the audio and video to be turned off by default. This is handy during informational webinars, but if interactivity is what you're looking for, ensure those cameras and mics are on and that the attendees know that they're expected to participate. As an attendee, what you can do is, well, for starters, mind your mute button. It's always visible in the Zoom window. It shouldn't move around or hide. The red line through the microphone or video icons means nobody can hear or see you. Now, I know that one is obvious, I know, but what you may not know is what the small carrots on both of those icons do. Clicking on these carrots will allow you to ensure on the fly from within the Zoom call that the correct audio and video inputs are selected, which is useful if you have external speakers, if you use headphones, or a USB camera. I also highly suggest that you use the test audio and video tool that launches before joining every meeting. This way you can ensure the correct inputs are selected before the meeting starts. This can also be done in your computer settings where you can default the correct devices that you want to use and just set it and forget it. And IT can also certainly help you out with that if needed. The leadership qualities we see in this instance are accountability and respect. Accountability because everyone is responsible for their own equipment, and respect in this instance is respect for others' time. These issues can delay meetings, cause momentum loss and confusion, as well as showing a lack of preparedness. Okay, so let's wrap things up by talking about some other quick virtual best practices. First of all, we want to mind our digital etiquette. Always use professional language and avoid multitasking so that your attention is on the meeting at hand. We should be mindful of our tone. Always be positive, professional, and respectful. Also, mind your camera use and when it should be on. A good rule to follow is that if your direct manager has their camera on, you might want to put yours on as well. Ensure that your lighting, framing, and background are also appropriate, whether it's real or you're on the virtual moon. Why does this matter? Because applying these best practices ensures that we exemplify credibility, foster appropriate engagement, and reinforce our team's culture. And we reinforce our commitment to showing up prepared and leading by example in every setting. All right, folks, I'm almost at time here, so I will leave you with this. Thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your interaction today. I hope I was able to teach you a few things, or at the very least, get you to chuckle a bit on a Friday. If you have any questions about anything I went over today, or if you would like to learn more, there is a Zoom best practices guide that we built that has a lot more great info like what we reviewed today. Please feel free to reach out to me at ifg_LDT@teamifg.com, and I'm happy to send it your way. Once again, thank you all for your time. My name is Bill Guenther, and I hope this has been fun for you. It certainly was for me. Happy Friday. Have a great rest of your day, and have a great weekend. Thank you.